Welcome to the Everyday Citizens Tactical Podcast, Episode 3, Gun Culture and Social Media. As always, my name is Jeremy, and I will be your host. Today I'm joined by Max, better known as MaxTheMisFit. He is an avid Second Amendment supporter, a very good video editor, and the host of the Undesirable Individuals podcast. As a reminder, everyone, you can find this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and Podbeam. New episodes come out the first and third Monday of the month. There should be a link in the description where you can find all the ways to find this podcast and more. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get started.
Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Straight the numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours. Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Straight the numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours.
All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. And Max, thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on.
I've really been looking forward to having you on, just with you having your own podcast, and you're just a really good conversationalist as it is. So I think this is going to be a really good episode for everybody.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I mean, some people think so. Other people are like, what is this fucking guy talking about most of the time?
or everybody will just turn it off, and this will be my least listened to episode.
That would be a trophy for me.
If you want to, go ahead and just introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about you, and what is Max and why are you a misfit?
Shit, man. I'm just a guy who likes freedom, honestly. Like I use that description a lot. I just I came from the far west where California, where pretty much gun culture is demonized seriously. And I didn't, grow up into the pro Second Amendment household and stuff like that. So I try to split the opinions as much as possible and just get new people into shooting and being trained as much as I can, even though it doesn't work all the time. But they're pretty much stuck in their ways, but I at least make an attempt. And I got a podcast known as the Undesirable Individuals. And that's all I got to my name, man. I just got way too much to say.
He does. I mean, his for everybody that's listening, his podcasts are a little different than mine. They're a little bit more wild and out there. But if they're a really good podcast, you just got to be able to tolerate some of his tomfoolery for a little bit.
we have a fun time. We make it fun.
So is Tanner now a permanent kind of co-host of the Undesirable Individuals?
Yeah, he is. First of all, he's like one of my oldest friends. He's just a great guy. And I went to him with the idea originally, thinking man, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. Would you want to be a guest a few times? And he was like, yeah, I'm down. And we started doing that. Mm-hmm. And it just felt really comfortable every time I would have him on. And so I just went to him and was like, dude, fuck it. Let's just bring you on to this. And we can just do this on our own from now on, and we're having a really good time doing that. Shout out to Tanner. It's his birthday today too.
Oh, well, happy birthday. Is like today, Sunday?
Yeah, today is the day. So
happy birthday to Tanner.
Happy birthday, based fuck. Sorry, it's his name. And
he doesn't have his second account up anymore, doesn't he?
Yeah, no. He's done with it, man. He got yeeted after the entire ban spree happened on Instagram that wiped everyone out, and he just doesn't want to do it. Yeah. It was me. It was all me. I banned everyone.
So me and Max met through the community on Instagram. And Max, I'll be honest, I don't remember if we've talked about this on your podcast. The first time I ever saw your Instagram account, I was like, who is this big, lengthy, awkward-looking individual?
That's me, man.
But I was like, but damn, he's fast as hell.
Yeah, that's what gets him.
And then now we talk pretty much on a weekly basis, if not a bi-daily basis at this point.
Yeah, you're a good guy, Jeremy. I like you.
Hey, I appreciate you. If you guys have never listened to the Undesirable Individuals podcast, definitely head over there and give him a listen and check out his Instagram, which is full of fantastic edits.
It's pretty interesting stuff. Most, nowadays, a lot of my stuff got taken down because I'm on my third account, but I'm still there. If I'm not there, I'll move somewhere else. So if I get banned, you can find me.
Which I guess kind of leads us into our first topic here, which is just general thoughts on social media. What do you think about social media? What are the pros? What are the cons? Where does your mind space kind of sit at?
Yeah, I think I have a pretty similar opinion to a lot of the quote unquote gun guys in the community. It's pretty awful for I think just societies in general. I think it's kind of a weapon these days. But if you can use it as a tool, it can be really beneficial to a lot of like communities or community aspects, especially with like the training lifestyles. Because I've learned a lot, like a lot of stuff just through Instagram.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think if you can like properly filter what content you're taking in, it can really help you out with learning new shit. So I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it, because there's also the self-promotion side of social media that's just like nothing but dopamine hits for the most part for people trying to like just get a bunch of likes as fast as possible.
And
But
I think something a lot of people forget about when people say like, "Oh, social media censors us so much," is when social media was first created, it was 100% created to be like a social tool in a sense, and
yeah,
political ideology hadn't had a grasp on social media yet.
yeah, and the control didn't have a grasp on it either. Like there weren't very many corporations putting their hands in it at the early stages. They kind of just created it and let it be what it wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays it's just wild, man. It is it is crazy just what they allow and what they don't. It really brings in the question of what is free speech if those platforms don't allow certain types of speech. And there's also the argument to be had that it's much like a town public square. Originally that's how societies would communicate or put notices up and stuff. They would have a public square, and we don't really have that much these days unless you're in a weird anarchist community. So you for the most part only have like Twitter and Instagram and these social media platforms to start getting ideas across.
Mm-hmm.
And when people start limiting that becomes a questionable act.
And I think I would be less mad if the restrictions and the censorship was at least even across the board.
Yeah, I agree.
If it was like, nobody's allowed to do any type of quote unquote extremes, regardless of whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, I'd be like, you know what, that's at least fair.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
it's not that way to any extent.
Not at all. And I had talked about that a little bit in the recent episode on my podcast with the whole Elon Musk situation. Everyone's upset that he bought Twitter, but it's really just the extreme left that's upset that he bought Twitter, because now they're gonna have to deal with the extreme right not having any censorship. So they can't just get away with saying wild shit anymore. They're gonna actually have to argue with people.
And when you look at like with the ban that recently happened in March with like our side of the community, the gun community in a sense,
Yeah.
and it affected people like that didn't even like post content in a sense, like people that just had accounts that happened to fall. It was very weird. There was no consistency to that ban whatsoever.
I mean, I don't know why you got banned. Like that. I'm still wondering that, because you weren't promoting anything. You were just like, "Hey guys, I think guns are kind of cool." Like it was really confusing to me. And then I'm sitting around like, "How am I still up? I've posted gore videos, bro. Like, what is this?"
And it's funny because like it didn't even ban one account. It had banned everything. It banned the business account. It bans my personal account. It bans my Bluegrass account on both Facebook and Instagram. So it's kind of tied itself to my device, which is very odd.
It's very strange. I'm happy you're at least on YouTube. Your YouTube page is dope.
Yeah,
So
it's funny to see what kind of content people like to interact with more on there.
Yeah, it's weird. I've been thinking about like venturing into that, but it's also just a completely different beast to me, and I have to show my face.
And it's with what was I gonna say? Oh, I hate when this happens.
Oh, dude, it happens all the time though. Welcome to podcasting.
I know. You think of something like really good to talk about, and you're like, I don't want to interrupt them. I'll let them finish, and then you just daze off, and you'll never remember.
And it's gone.
And it's gone. Oh, I remember. Haha. For those that are listening, if you follow our Instagram, if you've ever wondered why I've never posted anything on my story, it's because I can't get on social media on any of my devices except my laptop. And the browser versions of social media don't allow you to use like the story sharing methods on Instagram or anything like that. So I'm stuck to like just normal posting and responding to messages.
What a mess, man.
Because like people will tag me and stuff to like reshare on their stories. And I'm like, dang, I wish I could share that. And they just send question marks, and I'm like, let me tell you a tale.
Yeah. Why don't you want to promote me?
And then it just slowly drops off. Yeah. What's interesting about even more about like kind of the censorship when it comes to social media is things that they would normally censor, they will not censor depending on if it pushes like an agenda, like the whole, and this may get this whole podcast taken down, is the whole like Nazism thing in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Like you don't see the truth of the Azov battalion, and a lot of those aspects of Ukraine talked about on social media. It gets censored to push the specific, perspective or objective.
It's really frustrating that even with foreign conflicts, social media loves to force everyone to pick a side. It's really strange that the left just accepted that, like, oh, we're supporting Azov now without even looking into them. Like, look, Ukraine, Russia, pick your poison. Azov is not the fucking guys to be supporting.
No,
like,
not at all.
They've crucified people. They've committed war crimes just as much as the Russians have. And it's just really strange that, like, I don't know if everyone had seen this video, but it's like there was a live TV broadcast of like an entire crowd of Americans just chanting Azov, and that's very worrying.
and their battalion flag is the Ukrainian flag with a giant black swastika on it.
It's just fucked. Like they are wild, to say the least.
But I mean, I talk about it with other people in my life a lot, is people don't, depending on the views that they're allowed to basically see or what their algorithm feeds them on social media, people don't truly understand the reality of the world or just information in general that constantly floats on the internet.
Yeah.
Like the majority of people that support the Ukrainian side, or just even have outly spoken to support the Azov battalion, have no idea that they are diehard radical Nazis.
Yeah, they're extreme white supremacists, and it's pretty worrying, just because I guess like it really just shows the holes in a lot of people's, I guess, beliefs. It's not a matter of they believe what the left says. They just accept what the TV says most of the time, and it really shows that. And I think social media is mostly to blame for that, just because nowadays everyone just, we have nonstop dopamine firing off whenever we're staring at our news feeds. So it's like, well, at that point, I don't think people really have deep opinions on this. They're really just kind of going with the flock and figuring out, okay, well, I guess these are good guys.
And that kind of even goes into, I mean, I would even say the majority of Americans, specifically people our age, have no idea about anything from any perspective, because their social media algorithm doesn't feed them any information at all.
I've said it, all right, I'm the conspiracy theorist here, folks. I'll say it, but I've said it multiple times, man. Our generation is like the psyop generation. We've been just completely hit with nonstop, like, psychological gaslighting, like, our entire lives. It's just a mess.
Which is funny that you said that, because when I was doing some editing for the medical class we have coming up this week, I was watching the final Matrix movie before this podcast. I was like, this is fitting before a conversation with Max.
Yeah, the newest one?
Yeah, the newest one.
What'd you think of it? I'm curious.
I have like 15 minutes left in the end. However, I've seen the majority of the movie, and I think it doesn't make much of any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
There is
frustrated.
So much information that they just failed to explain.
It's just really frustrating. And I love The Matrix. Like, I've loved those movies forever.
I loved it.
Man.
I keep thinking that I'm eventually going to hit a point in the movie where they explain everything, but they don't.
When you finish it, you've got to hit me up, because literally the last like 3 seconds, the last shot is just so awful. It's so
oh god, now I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're gonna cry.
Because like, spoilers for anybody I guess that hasn't seen it, but like they don't explain where, how, or why Mr. Anderson is even in this movie.
Yeah.
After he got destroyed at the end of the last one.
It doesn't make sense.
And how he has so much control. I don't know. The guy that plays Barney from How I Met Your Mother, I don't understand his character at all. Like, they're like, there was a war between the machines, and then that's it. It doesn't say like why it happened, what
I don't understand how the Matrix got super meta out of nowhere. Like it's self-aware and then just feeds into Neo's brain that like, no, this was just a video game. Like it doesn't make sense.
None of it makes sense. Literally not a bit of any of it makes any sense, and I'm really disappointed.
Yeah, it was frustrating because the first like hour is pretty cool, just to look at. Mm-hmm. But anyways, Matrix
is disappointing.
Yeah, it's just bad.
But back onto the social media thing.
Yeah.
It's weird because, like, I talked to you about it a lot. Just kind of like things about like shortages and supply lines and logistics and all of that. Like, if your social media is not set up to feed you information on, real time events happening in the world, people have no idea it's happening, and now people have been conditioned to think that none of it is actually happening. Yeah.
They get shocked when there's no milk on, in the market, but they're like, well, no one said anything about this. Now a lot of people are saying stuff about this. There are people really analyzing it. It's just a matter of, are you looking into it? Mm-hmm. It's
a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess, and it's really detrimental to people who are trying to, I guess, prep too, because if you're really looking for news articles, I mean, the news is too late. If it hits the news, like a lot of people already knew about it beforehand.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, it's about a lot of shit lately. Like the shooting that happened yesterday, it's the same thing. Like,
I remember hearing and watching about the start of the war in Ukraine, literally like at 11:30 at night in my bed.
Yeah.
I was about to go to bed. And my phone started blowing up from like all these like third-party sources I get information from.
Yep.
And it didn't hit Fox, CNN, ABC, any of them.
I mean,
I was already seeing like combat footage. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, I was aware of it the second that front gate footage, that like CCTV front gate footage came out, where that one soldier started running away from the Russians. That's when it pretty much sent off, and I knew about that within the hour that it happened. And then like a day later, they were like, "Oh no, Ukraine's being attacked." It's like, "Oh yeah, we've been knowing about that."
yeah, you're behind.
Yeah, you're behind just a little bit. We've been seeing a whole lot of people get schwacked.
So, in transition from your thoughts on social media, what are your thoughts on gun culture as it stands now? And this kind of can break into our gun culture as we see it, our side of the community, and then just general U.S. gun culture.
Okay, cool. I actually really like this question because, like you had just said, there's kind of different gun cultures right now. And the one that we're a part of, we can touch on that because, for the most part, I think your listeners are all a part of that as well. I think right now, and since like the past maybe 2 years, for the most part, we're usually on the right path in the long run. However, I think we focus on shit that doesn't matter a little bit too much. I think we're stuck in consumerism for the most part. And look, I'm wearing Task Force Doomer right now, bro. Like, I'm no different than any of y'all. But I think like it's really not as important as everyone thinks, whether you have this type of chest rig and do you also have this type of plate carrier and this and that. I think what we should really transition to, and I think Lucas from T-Rex Arms and that entire team is doing it perfectly, is to just focus on education. Mm-hmm. And with the outside culture, outside of social media, I would say that like the biggest problem that I see is that people are, people on the other side of this opinion and the anti-gun people, if you want to call them that, they're more or less afraid. They're really scared of this shit. They see us as these like terrifying people who, if we have guns, we want to kill people, and that's how it is. And I think we need to just start spreading education as much as possible, and at the very least, just show the opposite side that we want to protect people. I understand that guns are scary and shit like that, but just start educating as much as you can. And even new people who are into it and they like training and shit, but they're not really as adept as everyone else. Just educate, just teach them, just bring them under the wing and be like, look, this is how you clean your gun. I think that's what we should be focusing on, because the more of us there are, the better we are, and the communities are safer.
And I think that in regards to our side of the gun culture,
Yes.
the more modern side of gun culture, I think both the consumer market and from the educational standpoint, we're moving so fast that the culture itself may be having troubles keeping up with it.
Yep, great point.
Specifically
I
the
entirely
education
agree.
point. Because 5 years ago, nobody was talking about land nav and bushcraft and medical.
No.
5 years ago, it was split times and reloads.
Mm-hmm.
And people like Lucas from TX Arms, like they talk about that and they admit it. Like, yeah, we were a little narrow-minded.
Yeah.
5 years ago. If the only people that were doing that kind of stuff 5 years ago were like the weird militia your uncle was in.
Yeah, the like extreme preppers.
Yeah. But
I mean, not even extreme anymore. At the time, 5 years ago, it was extreme.
Now they're behind.
Yeah. They haven't, changed their social media to see the when the milk is gone.
But yeah, I mean, specifically the consumer market, things come
Yes.
out so fast and so much comes to the civilian markets. And that stuff can be very expensive. Getting adequate gear outside of your plate carrier and your primary rifle can get quite expensive.
Yes, it can get pretty rough pretty quick. And especially trying to find something that's good these days, that's kind of tough also. Like there's a lot of like real Gucci shit that will fall apart so fast. And
Absolutely.
it's bad. I think that side of the culture where it's like, well, this is that new hotness now. Like, okay, but it's only been out for like a month. So do we know that it's going to last more than a month? It's tough. Also, a slight plug real quick, because I found out about this page not long ago, and I think it's beneficial for like new dudes. Check out Unobtainium Gear. These guys are like independently making seriously good chest rigs that are like fucking cheap, dude. And
Interesting.
yeah, so check those out. I haven't used their shit. I can't say that it works for sure, but like it's
Jamie,
an
go ahead and
independent
pull it
company.
up.
Yeah, pull that up, Jamie. Fuck it.
What's their name?
Unobtainium Gear.
Unobtainium Gear. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, these are some dope little chest rigs.
Yeah, dude, isn't that some cool shit? Like they got
Yeah.
they got some like meme camos, but everything else, like it's fucking cool.
And they're not like, just bare slicksters. Like these are actually kind of like purposely.
Yeah,
built in a
they kind of
sense.
have a little bit of a load bearing sense to them.
Okay. Unobtainium Gear, you're getting a follow right now.
Yeah, there we
Boom.
go. There you go, boys.
They've
I
got a
have nothing
follow.
to do with them. I just think they're cool. Just letting everyone know.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, pretty dope.
So then what do you think about, general gun culture across the U.S.? And there's probably more little subcategories we could talk about gun culture, but we'll focus on like our community and then just gun culture as a whole.
I think that one's tougher because it's harder to observe for the most part unless you're going to like public ranges all the time.
Yeah.
But I think they're a little bit behind. I think the overall gun culture, like, and that's not me being like in an elitist sense whatsoever, but I think they're just a little bit behind, and they're still kind of stuck in that idea of like, well, I have a gun and I carry, so I'm safe.
Or I have 12 guns and no plate carrier.
Yeah, I have like, and they're all fucking weird semi-auto shotguns that I don't, need to keep hoarding.
With no butt stock. And
Yeah, there's no butt stock, and then one of them is
14.5-inch
mag fed.
barrel. And
Yeah. And look, if you're like a skeet shooter and that's what you like doing, and for to you don't have any other purposes, then cool, do what you want to do, bro. But like I think for the self-defense aspect of things, like we could stay away from having 5 Segas,
Oh, for sure. And I think, at least from my experience talking to normal people that kind of have started to awaken and kind of come to the same realization and kind of ideology that I think we both kind of find ourselves in.
I think it's funny we call them normal people.
I mean, I guess in my mind we're normal. I think.
Yeah, it's true.
But I still find it hard to convince people that they should buy gear.
Yeah.
Like just as something as simple as just like a belt that holds your pistol, a couple mags, and a dump pouch. Like people are like, I don't know if I can spend that $175.
Yeah. And
I'm gonna go drop $80 at the bar tonight.
Yeah. I find it really, really frustrating that there's still like a group of shooters, a really large group of pro gun shooters and stuff that are like, man, I think those guys with helmets and stuff are real dorky. Like me and my cop buddies and my SF buddies that I know, we make fun of them and shit. It's like, okay, but there's a purpose for it. Like, did we not see the 2020 riots? Did we not see the fucking, I mean, January 6th, if you want to bring it up, like just all that shit, all the insane amounts of shit that, you know, occurs when large groups of people start getting really angry. I'm pretty sure we could justify having armor and kit real fucking quick. Like even just yesterday, like in Chicago, Chirac, like this insane mob of people, of like hundreds of people were just smashing cars yesterday for no fucking reason. And it's just like, no, we need kit, bro.
And you watched the live stream just like I did. We won't talk about it in great depth on here.
Yeah.
But you watched the live stream from the Buffalo,
Yes,
New York
sir.
shooter.
Yes.
What did most of those people do when shooting started?
Yeah, I mean, they froze, man. They just like stopped.
They
And
froze. They just dropped to the ground. I mean,
Yep.
once that guy got in the store, because for those that have not seen it,
It's rough.
The shooting starts outside the store, and it's
Yeah.
a brutal video.
It's hard to watch.
And so the guy starts outside the store, and he makes his way into the store, and people haven't left like through the side exits or the back doors, they literally just drop to the floor and just kind of like fetal positioned.
Yeah, and that's not going to save you, man.
That will not save you.
I know might be different opinion around here, but fetal position, not the best position to be in when there's a shooting.
No. Not unless you're going to purposefully do the meme where it's like, call an ambulance, but not for me. And then you just post both feet on the ground, perfectly spread knees, and just start mag dumping into the active shooter.
Yeah.
That will be acceptable.
Even from there, though, if you're on the ground, you can't move very far. But not making jokes. Not making jokes.
No,
in
not
this
making jokes.
shit situation.
Yeah, we should probably just stop talking about
Yeah.
This is going to be perceived really horribly.
Yeah.
Let the record show. I hope that guy hangs.
Yes.
Just in case there's any question.
I am extremely frustrated about this entire shooting, specifically because they took him alive.
He should have been shot immediately.
Yep.
No question.
I have a hard time paying taxes when my taxes go to keep pieces of shit like that alive. Like, it's really frustrating.
Did you see he pleaded no guilty?
Are you what?
Yeah, there's his courtroom video was out there or whatever, and he's standing there in like one of those like hospital gown type things because they took his military fatigues off of him, and he pleaded not guilty.
Oh.
I think. I said we're not going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it very.
We're going to talk about it. Yep. I guess we're.
I think he's saying he's not guilty because he doesn't see what he did as wrong, not because he didn't do it.
Oh my God.
Regardless, that's wild to walk in there and say, I'm good.
That's wild. Like you
should have just hung him outside right then and there.
Yep. They should have just been like, okay, well, you don't see anything wrong with it, so there's no reason to rehabilitate you. We should just fucking put you in the dirt real quick.
This podcast is a no racist zone, everybody.
No,
if you're a
not
racist,
at all.
regardless of what color you are, you're a piece of shit.
Racial supremacy and in its entirety is disgusting. It's just disgusting. I don't care what race you are that you claim to be promoting. Like, it's just disgusting, man.
Yeah. Gross. Oh, man, what were we talking about on gun culture before we got to this?
Yeah, I don't know.
We were talking about people who just like that they carry and they're just like, yep, I'm done. Like, no gear, no training.
The lazy gun owners is what
I do feel like the culture generally has somewhat changed to where people are starting to take classes more, which is where they probably inevitably end up getting more exposure.
Yeah, I think so. And I kind of have a love-hate relationship with some classes just because, you know, I think like the statement take a course or take a class is quite an umbrella term because, you know, you could go and take like 7 pistol classes and if you're not doing like force on force and you're not doing a whole lot of, you know, moving, running and gunning and shit, I don't really know if it's like benefiting you. So I think that's also important to bring up is like, you know, if you're taking courses, make sure that there's like purpose to the courses and you're not just trying to learn how to like do a reload faster. You can do that at home, dry firing, you know.
And you gain. I think the big thing about classes is you you gain more from how your instructor conducts themselves more than what the instructor is teaching in a sense.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, like, a lot of instructors, or at least good instructors, will give you, scenario-based thought experiments and conversations, and they'll talk about real-life experience and what works and what doesn't work out. Good instructors don't just come to the range and then, like, this is what we're doing. That'll be $100.
Yeah. Bring 500 rounds.
And I think old Dragonfly, on the new Haley Strategic podcast, I think he talked about that very briefly. Did you see Haley Strategic has a podcast now?
I saw that he has it. I haven't listened to it yet, though. I got to check out Ed's Manifestos one too.
There's a lot of good podcasts coming out.
This is a great time to be into long form media. Like, podcasts are everywhere, man. Like, that's also a great place that you can learn a whole lot, like on the mindset stance of things too.
And
not at my podcast though. Mine doesn't do that.
Yeah. I will never bash the Undesirable Individuals podcast. But however, with that being said, you got to be ready for just a wild mental ride when you listen to those episodes. I personally love it. I could listen to it all day. But I bet some people turn that on and they're like,
"Oh yeah,
what is this guy? What is he high? He is high. Oh,
he
says
is
he's
high.
high.
He
all
is.
Right,
okay, got you. Is his guest? His guest is also high. Okay, this is, what am I listening to? Why is the cover two guys and kids?
What is life?
Yeah, what is this?
But it makes me wonder, how long do we have until somehow, regardless of how many platforms your podcast may be on, your podcasts start to be censored?
Yeah, I've wondered that too, and I've done a little bit of work to kind of minimize that, and the first one is to just not be monetized. If I'm not taking money from anyone, then no one can really like force me to say this specific thing or not say this thing. The only way that they'll do that is if they like go through the whole episode and then decide like, okay, he can't say that.
Yeah. And I think I said it in my first podcast that the Everyday Sense Tactical podcast, even on YouTube, is not monetized. I specifically unselect any monetization settings for this because I'm like, I want this to be our own thing, attract the least amount of attention as possible. But it's also hard to like censor this. Like you said, you have to listen to this to like find things to censor about it.
Yeah, you've got to go through the whole thing, and it's not something that you can like just put an AI bot onto, like on Instagram or Twitter. And not yet. Yeah, I'm sure eventually they'll start figuring out how to, read vocal tones and figure out how to make robots understand English.
Then I'll just start talking in different accents.
And then I'll just have another topic for a new episode, so we're set.
I'll get my one more episode in. Let's see here. Yeah, I guess. All right. So I guess kind of rolling over from current gun culture, how can we change gun culture? And we kind of already started to talk on this, and again, we can do the two subcategories. How do we change things for the better moving forward?
That's a tough question, and it's something that I've thought about multiple times, and a lot of like groups formed out of the Instagram like communities to try and actually combat this issue, to try and like better the culture somehow. And the sad part is it almost always gets like put to sleep at some point. I really think that the best way, and everyone always says this, but the best way you can do it is just focus on your own output and what like you're putting out, what you're promoting, what you're teaching. And if it does create a wave effect, if you inspire one person, that person might learn something new and then figure something else out and do the same thing and start just teaching other people like different ways of reloads and dry firing and how to, put load bearing kit onto small plate carriers and all this different shit. And the next thing that you have a community of people teaching each other rather than just being like, well, my gear's cooler than yours, and this is why an Anderson sucks or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. What really matters is just teaching.
So I have an interesting story on this with social media, kind of just that aspect of like your community and your verbal interactions like really take it the far way. Because I could post 1,000 things on why the Second Amendment is good on social media, and the only people that are ever probably going to see it are going to be people that already support the Second Amendment.
Yep.
And very little people who just hate the Second Amendment, don't want to hear otherwise, aren't going to take the time to read it. And if they do read it, they're not going to process it and be like, well, he's got a point. They're going to be like, oh, report.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
So I have a cousin, I guess a married into the family cousin who owns a nanny agency. This is everyone's like, what? Where's he going with this? Stick with it. We'll get there.
They're not blood. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, they ain't my kin, but I count them. She has a nanny agency, and she is, I would refer to her more as a hippie, a little bit more of an old school hippie. She does have some classic liberal ideology. She's not like a far left like Antifa by any means.
Yeah.
But she's just kind of generally liberal. And she does not really like the idea of firearms in a sense, or at least she did not in the past, but she recently reached out to me because she runs a kind of like a blog for her nanny service in a sense.
Yeah.
And it kind of provides like educational topics for parents and how to deal with children and all this kind of stuff. And a topic that she wanted to write about was gun safety in the home with children or whatever. So we got into this really long conversation about gun culture, gun safety, a little bit of the purpose of the Second Amendment. I kind of push that in there because it does matter.
It does.
When you're explaining guns to people, and I'll get back to my topic here in a second. When you're explaining guns to people, we as a culture have to move forward on the purpose of the Second Amendment, not using it as just like in our back. Like it has to be pushed. Like the Second Amendment is important.
Yes.
But I digress. So after conversating with her and answering a ton of questions that she eventually published in an article, she came to me and she was like, "You have completely opened my. I had no idea the majority of the information you told me, because I was talking about shooting statistics and survivors and female sexual assault survivors and kidnappings, like all this kind of stuff. Like I went down the rabbit hole."
Yeah.
And you kind of had to do that, but just that one-on-one conversation changed a single mind that did not want to be changed prior to the conversation. And I think that is important.
Yeah, I think that's how we change the culture, is how we talk to the people who aren't a part of it. That's probably the best way to do it, because if it grows, I mean, it's better for everyone now. I mean, more guns and more hands to some might sound scary, but I mean, an armed population is a very kind population.
Now, does she think I should be allowed to have machine guns now because we had that one conversation? No, but
but now it's debatable, right?
Yeah, now it's in question.
Yeah. Now you can bring that up later. Be like, so you're cool with me carrying. What about M249s?
So I stole this from the National Guard.
Yeah. I was passing Pendleton one day, and I was really bored.
Oh, don't even say the word Pendleton. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm actually wearing a tank top right now that's entirely too small that I bought at a mall in Los Angeles when I was in Camp Pendleton.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Los Angeles, man.
Angeles.
I brought up Pendleton. You had flashbacks. You brought up Los Angeles. I have flashbacks.
Oh, did you see, again, a little off topic for everybody, sorry, but did you see like the whole thing about water restrictions the mayor was saying with Los Angeles?
Oh, for fuck's sake. No, I didn't.
They were talking about how, like the city council is going to start coming out with like water restrictions and stuff. And the mayor was like, you guys shouldn't be taking showers longer than 4 minutes. You should only be doing dishes this many times a day. And like, it was the whole water issues. It could be a podcast within itself right now.
Yeah. And I mean, California, especially Los Angeles County, I mean, they've been saying we're in a drought since I was like 9, it's always been, we're in a drought. We're all going to die. And it's like, well, I mean, I don't know if that's true. I don't know, if that's actually true, because these people have been pushing it my whole life.
Mm-hmm. I do feel like it's just slowly, progressively getting worse, kind of like everything else in our life.
Yeah, it's the frog and getting boiled, pretty much.
Quite literally in Los Angeles.
Yeah, really. I mean, who knows? Los Angeles is evil enough. They could have, the most water in the world, and they might just be limiting it because peasants, who knows?
Any other general comments kind of on just changing gun culture?
I mean, there's always something to be said. I think, if there's any advice that I have for individuals who want to try and fix something, is meet someone in person. Maybe not, a rando on the internet, but just someone that you might know that's probably anti-gun or is not about that shit. Just invite them to a range day and, shoot with them and show them how safe you are. That's kind of the bigger picture there, is to at least show the other side that we're not out here just fucking waving these goddamn things around thinking that they're toys and shit. Like, we take it seriously. We're serious people. So I think that would help.
The majority, I would say, in your communities, the majority of smart concealed carriers, people never know that they're actually around.
Yep, exactly.
For example, I was in the grocery store the other day, and I swear it sounded like somebody threw a 50-pound bag of rice off a third-story deck.
Oh,
I was in this Kroger, I was looking at bananas and whatnot, because bananas are good for you. And just out of nowhere, I heard, I genuinely thought it was a gunshot. I've heard a lot of gunshots in my life. I heard just the loudest bang, and I immediately turned and pulled my shirt up and had my gun on my pistol, but not out of the holster, faster than I had realized I did it. And everybody stopped and kind of freaked out for a second, looked around, and then nothing happened. And just as I had pulled my shirt back over my pistol, this mom from across the vegetable aisle was just in shock, kind of looking at me, and I just kind of nodded my head and scurried off.
Yep.
But I mean, there's more people out there than you realize.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes you can kind of identify them if they're wearing, the 1776 shirt like myself. They got a gun on them, most of the time. But I've noticed that
naked and I look like I have a gun on me.
Yeah. It's just all those muscles on muscles, man. I mean, I think you are a gun at this point.
Yeah. What was funny was, as everybody knows, I'm a fireman. We did an education day at the school recently.
Yeah.
At the high school, and the freshmen were in there we had a career day. So it was a ton of businesses and whatnot. The high schoolers could come in and talk and ask questions. And this group of high school freshmen came up to our booth and were asking what all my tattoos on my arms meant. I was like, well, have you heard about this thing called tyranny? And I just started explaining my tattoos.
Yeah, because you've got 6 Semper Tyrannis on it, don't you?
I have 6 Semper Tyrannis on one arm and Malone LaVey on the other.
Based. Oh shit!
Which is even funnier because I know you're not friends with me on Facebook, but our department posted this picture the other day. I pulled a cat out from underneath a truck that was up on up underneath one of the wheels.
Yeah.
One of the firemen got down underneath there and took a picture of me pulling this cat out from underneath the vehicle and put it on the department page. And it's just my forearm stretched across underneath this truck with 6 Emperor Tyrannus in the middle of the photo. It's just, which is the same arm with my pirate flag tattoo that talks about slitting throats. Put just right on the department page. I was like, that's hilarious.
That's good. That's quality. And you're just getting a little kitty.
Yeah, 100%. Just got a little black cat. Just doing my job.
Quality. We're out here protected and serving. Can't say that. Oh, man.
Damn. Good stuff. All right. Good stuff. We kind of already talked about social media a little bit, but I kind of want to change gears on that. How, even based on how much censorship and limitations we have with social media, how can we utilize social media in its current form to continue to push for a better, more modern gun culture, but also just improve our own communities and kind of future as a society?
It's tough because there's always the barrier, especially now with censorship. So it's really difficult for us to kind of operate on those platforms as is, because we could be the most kind-hearted individuals on social media and have a picture of a firearm up and they'll just ban you as is. So, it's a hard argument to have or a hard discussion to have because you could try day in and day out to make a better platform and they could literally just get rid of you overnight like they did with so many people.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
I had a little burp. So
oh yeah, never mind.
I don't know if you heard that or not. I closed my mouth when I was like, I should say excuse me in case on the podcast.
But
I
don't know, man. It's tough, especially with Instagram and the Zuck in charge of that still.
Why do you think those that run social media, and I don't even necessarily mean the CEOs like Mark Zuckerberg, but those that kind of write and program AI and all that kind of stuff that actually is responsible for the censorship. Why do you think they are that way? I mean, are they really all just that die-hard leftists in a sense, or push that type of control and agenda for government? Like, how is it that way? Why is it that way?
I like that question. I get to turn on the Max the Misfit conspiracy theory here. So this is what I
All right,
think.
Guys, that's all we got for this
Yep,
episode.
that's it. This is what I think, because I think for the most part, a lot of these companies are actually just like nonpartisan. I think they don't really care too much as long as they're making money. So I think that these people who are censoring everything and really just catering to either the left or whatever you want to call it, I think there's external forces that are putting money into some pockets. I think that's what's going on. I've always kind of thought that's what has been up. It just makes sense to me. But I don't know. They could just be extreme socialists too. You know, I don't know if there's like an agenda that's being pushed specifically here and there, or what's going on. But it really always comes down to money.
I can't remember if it was the actual beginning of the internet or it was Google, or I guess more specifically Alphabet, Google's parent company. But I'm pretty sure that there is a theory / factual information that the CIA has a heavy hand in the creation of either the internet or Google.
Oh yeah, they have. I mean, they've got a heavy hand in pretty much all of media. It's pretty much proven that they. I mean, just this fact alone, the fact that like Hollywood, whenever they're making like CIA movies or agency movies or any of that shit, they actually go to the CIA to make sure that they can like talk about this and that to make sure the CIA looks like a good agency.
Yeah.
That alone.
Could you imagine if they made movies on the real CIA?
Oh, dude, fucking.
There wouldn't be a
I'm
CIA.
sure it's called the Blacklist. Like, it's they totally manipulate everything that you see. In fact, if you are looking at something through a screen, there has to be at least an itch in your brain that questions like, is this really real what I'm looking at? Because it could be CGI nowadays, the shit that is getting pushed out.
I can't believe that Netflix was even allowed to make that Waco series.
Yeah, I know, dude. I don't remember who originally made it, because it was on cable TV to start with.
Really?
Yeah, and then Netflix bought it. And I don't even know if you can get it on Netflix anymore.
I'm pretty sure it's not on there anymore.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, it was a really good series.
Besides the end, when they try to make it seem like the FBI and ATF cried when they burned children alive, they definitely did not do that.
They did not care one bit.
They did not care. They were just like, well, day's done.
But even the light that they made the ATF and the FBI kind of seem throughout a large majority of that. I mean, they kind of painted them in a bad picture for a large. I'm surprised they were allowed to do that.
Yeah, they were not the good guys of that story.
No,
which
I mean, the Davidians were kind of crazy, but
they
really didn't do anything wrong. I mean, there's the theory about like the whole minor wives type thing, which I don't think was ever actually proven in court after the incident.
Right.
Which is still wrong by all means.
Oh, absolutely. But
I don't think it means that the children needed to be burned alive by any means.
Exactly. And I think
you can't marry children if there's no children. Like that
we're protecting them. But they actually added a really quick line into the show that is very important to really the entirety of that case. And like someone was on the radio talking about it, like in the television show, and they had said, if you have a problem with what they're doing inside the compound, you actually have a problem with Texas law, because what they were doing by law was actually legal at the time. I don't think it is anymore.
Yeah. I do believe you are correct. 'Cause I think throughout the majority of the U.S., you could marry
at like 14.
At the age of like the age of consent or the age of like marriage was much younger until recent history.
Especially if like parents were involved, if parents are okay with it and they sign off on it, then it was legal at the time, and that's where the Branch Davidians really would have gotten all those families from. You know that so. Was it probably a grooming situation? Absolutely. But the problem was the laws. Like, if they didn't want that to be happening, they could have completely gone back and rewritten legislation.
And religion had a big thing to play in that.
Oh, yeah,
it was
dude.
all religion based, and back then you're like, yeah, we don't touch religion.
Yeah, especially like
unless we don't like that religion.
Yeah, exactly.
Then screw that religion.
Yeah, and then we can justify a war. Fuck it. But if it's like the Branch Davidians were kind of smart because they were a cult that was under the umbrella of Christianity. So they pretty much were like, "Oh, you want to argue that? You want to get involved with that? Let's go." So
and they were really well armed,
extremely well armed,
as they should be.
Absolutely. I look at that compound. I'm like, you probably could have made it look a little less threatening, but I'm with it, man. that looks pretty solid.
But even outside of everything that went on with the Davidians, and the kind of how they were cults and the firearms, all that, the things that the ATF and the FBI did throughout that siege, like the, mental manipulation and the sound waves and like all that type of really weird equipment that they used.
And the entrapment.
Basically mentally torture people through like psychological warfare and sense. Like that was their own government.
Yeah. It's just crazy.
This podcast has gone completely different than that.
Hey, it's always fun when I'm on.
But I like it. I like it. It's whatever.
Good information.
Good information nonetheless.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to social media. I feel like one thing we have done that has kind of helped us with social media as far as just kind of changing for the better is we're pushing more than just firearms information now.
Yes, and thank God for it, man.
Yeah, I think it definitely was for the better because that stuff is very important, but it's also not censored in a sense. Like, I'm not going to get deleted for posting medical information.
Or how to grow food.
Or how to like none of my bread posts have ever been taken down.
Yeah, no. That shit looking thick, by the way. You're really good at making bread.
I have not bought store-bought bread except when I'm at the firehouse just because we buy groceries every day as a crew.
Yeah.
I have not bought bread for my household since August.
Dude, I gotta get on that. I gotta try out some bread.
Love me some bread. Bread is the way.
But yeah, once everyone started pushing like hiking encouragement and working out in kit, not just looking cool, and especially like greenhouses, and this is how I set up my garden. Like, dude, that's the coolest shit right now because if everyone's so worried, about food shortages and power shortages, the dollar dying, like then get ahead of it and learn through people who are already like sustaining themselves in really amazing ways.
I think self-sufficiency as a culture is more important now than literally anything else, even like gun culture.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if we can't self-sustain ourselves as individuals and communities, then your gun rights and the possibilities you have with firearms to change the potential future has no meaning.
Yeah, and I've got to get better at it. I think we all do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's somebody we could all always be better.
Yep. Never gonna be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, if getting prepping is getting expensive now.
Yeah, dude. I feel so stupid, man. I'm like looking at my expensive ass gear and I'm like, man, I really probably should have got like a greenhouse. Should have done something before all this.
Yeah, I'm like pretty much since the second I got out of the Marine Corps, I'm like 2 years into like some pretty hardcore prepping.
Yeah.
Both logistically and like supply wise, and I'm glad we have. And my dad and my mom have both really got on board with it as well. I don't live with my parents, for everybody listening. I'm not like recording this from their basement. I've just got them on board as like the aspect of family preparedness.
Yep.
And it's been really good. If you guys aren't prepping to some extent, like I said in my last YouTube video, you are wrong and you need to fix yourself.
I'm trying to get my parents into something, man. Like they're still out in California, and I worry about my family for the most part because it's like, man, what happens when the shit does hit the fan and there's like no money, no food, nothing? Like it's gonna be a problem.
So I do want to talk about that after our last talking point because I do want to talk about some like your take on modern problems going on because you usually have a very interesting just viewpoint about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
we have good conversations about that. So I guess the last thing I have here before we start diving off to the random topics board is in regards to changing gun culture in a sense and social media. Does any of this really matter, or are we just kind of wasting our time, specifically when it comes to social media?
So the short answer is not really. I think social media will kind of always be what it is as long as it's still being helmed by the same people and by the same corporations. But like we had said earlier, individuals have got to filter what type of content that they're going to be at least like taking to heart. I think that's the important part. But I don't really know if it matters or not because, social media is online. There is a life to live out there. So I think there's the social media aspect of it where it's like, it's good to get knowledge from things, but where the real work needs to be done is like in the real life communities. And that's where things are going to really start changing. And once that starts changing, I'm sure, social media will change as a result to that.
I think one of the biggest things, and it's like you talked about, getting into the real world and changing things is we have got to be better at organizing on a community level.
Yep.
Regardless of what you label yourself as, whether you're a MAG, a citizens response group, the Minuteman movement, whatever you align yourself with or whatever ideology you kind of find yourself within, the community is so important. I mean, I cannot stress how important the community is.
And I get it. I get why it's not like, because I live near a city, really, really near a city, pretty much in it, to be honest. And I'm antisocial as fuck, man. Like, I don't want to fucking go talk to my neighbors and shit, because around my area, it's just so many different types of people. So it's difficult to kind of find those people and find, spots that you can start training and learning and shit like that with those people that you somehow found in a city. But if you're in a position where you're able to, and you know that there's people in your area that are thinking the same things that you are, go find them, man. Like they're going to be better than that chest rig that got 2,000 likes.
And it's hard to get people to realize that this stuff is important.
Yeah, man.
I can think of 100 people off the top of my head that I've talked to over the past 2 years of kind of just running my local group that I've talked to, and they're like, yeah, that sounds really important, but I'm just kind of busy in life right now, so I don't know, and blah blah blah. And it's like, got 15 hours in your whole month maybe to get to know people in your community and better prepare yourself for a potential issue in the future.
Yeah.
People make excuses about time a lot. There are short periods of life where everybody does have just like no time at all. Like right now, I am doing this podcast, running the business, working at the firehouse, working out regularly still, and I'm 6 days from closing on my house. And then the month of June, I have a horse pasture to put in, a chicken operation to get up and running, and probably about 600 square feet of garden to build.
Working.
So there are times in life where there is just a point where you're like, I am too busy. But to just say for like month after month after month, like, yeah, I'm just busy. Yep. But then you just go home and at the end of your work day and scroll Facebook for 2.5 hours before you manage to get up and make a bowl of ramen. Like that's not busy. That's lazy.
Yeah, that's true.
I digress.
It's factual. I'm looking at myself on that one too. I've been slacking, dude. It is.
Do you want to talk at all about your recent change in diet and like, do you have anything positive to say about it?
Yeah, sure. Fuck it,
Go
dude.
ahead.
So, recently I've been kind of slacking a little bit because I was having tummy issues, but I started going pretty much mostly carnivore. I was taking a lot of supplements at the time because I had eczema and a whole lot of like skin issues. So I was taking like different, ointments and creams and shit like that. And it was ridiculous. And I was like, maybe it's my diet. And sure as shit, it was. And so I switched over to mostly carnivore. I still need carbs because I'm a skinny fuck and I need to put on weight. So got to burn something off instead of just all the meat that I'm taking in. But I started taking heart and soil supplements. Just plug for that. There you go. Paul Saladino, but it's supplements of a few ounces of like liver, heart, spleen, pancreas, all grass-fed from bovine, and my eczema completely cleared up. I find that I have more energy in the day. I like when I take it in the morning and I start going to work and stuff, I don't like just completely tire out. So I kind of like depended less on sugars, which I didn't even realize that my body was horrifically addicted to, and pretty much still is for the most part, along with probably everyone listening to this. Like, there's so much sugar in our food, it's fucking crazy. So yeah, I just tightened the collar on that slightly to be like, let's see if we could try something out and see how it feels, and it's great. So I would recommend it to anyone who, you know, doesn't have like a weird stomach issue with like red meats and shit like that. Try it out, because it's pretty fucking awesome. I don't know if like vegetables are as like dangerous as a lot of pro carnivore diet people say they are. I think you still need some greens, but definitely worth a try for anyone interested in it. I put on some muscle doing it, which is crazy, so that's cool.
I think with the whole vegetable and even like the fruit thing, it fully depends on what type of vegetables and fruits you're eating. Are you eating processed, you know, commercially grown, you know, genetically modified fruits and vegetables, or are you buying like fruits and vegetables from your local farmer's market that is grown with nothing but love and sunshine?
Yeah. And you know how much seed oils you're using also. I've just switched to just butter nowadays. If I'm cooking something, it's just much better than any type of oil you'll use.
This is the way. I don't use oils anymore either. That's one thing I do stockpile is butter. I freeze butter.
Yeah, it's
long term.
really good for you for the most part.
That's good though. I'm glad to hear that.
It's been
a little while since I've got an update on that.
Yeah, I've been kind of, you know, slacking back and forth here with it, because also, you know, eating grass-fed all the time does get slightly expensive. But
it has to be crazy.
It's pretty expensive, but you know, I have some cheat meals here and there because I'm like, fuck it, dude. A pinch of a dirty bulk, that's okay. Yeah. Fuck it.
You got to enjoy life too. That's the thing is.
Yeah.
We're already probably going to be miserable in the near future as it is. We might as well just enjoy things.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be Liver King, you know, like losing my shit on sleeping on boards and shit like that. So
that dude's there's got to be some sort of fakeness to that.
Oh, dude, there's no way
There's no way that dude lives. There's no way he sleeps on boards. There's no way.
No, there's no way he does that. And there's no way that he's completely natural. I assure you, you cannot gain a bulbous six-pack like that just by eating liver all the time. I promise you that does not happen.
No, not at all.
No, that dude's probably on gear. Don't at me.
Don't at me. We're gonna end up on it. We're gonna end up on his. Doesn't he have a podcast now or something?
Yeah, he does.
We're gonna end up on his podcast. He's like, who are these jackasses? Screw you.
Skinny twerp is saying that I'm not natty.
So kind of on to random topics. I kind of want to talk about some specific current events things outside the classic COVID that a lot of people like to talk about.
Yeah, man.
So fuel is a big issue, specifically over the past week. I don't know how it is for the West Coasters, but on the East Coast, they announced on Friday that the East Coast diesel reserves was 20% below what it's like maintaining average for the first time in a very, very, very long time. Mm-hmm. So like there was a bunch of people posted a lot of screenshots from like their memos, from like their emails and text alerts from their businesses, and it was basically their employers telling them that, you know, soon certain gas stations won't have fuel for truck drivers and that they should avoid taking freight to certain states. A lot of it was like the Southeast. So, you know, what's your general kind of thoughts on just the fuel aspect about all this and gas prices across the U.S.? What do you think?
Oh, man. Well, it's scary. That's, you know, first off, it's pretty terrifying. But I also think, like, I'm not really sure how people could prep for that either. I think, like, if you have the ability to store large amounts of fuel, I would recommend doing that. Just because nowadays, I mean, I personally start to worry about, like, you know, gas pumps just getting shut down because they don't have it anymore. But then there's the other question of like, well, what's causing that? You know, I mean, we know that it's supposedly Russia and Ukraine and all that jazz. But I mean, this could also just be a direct result of insane amounts of inflation too. People might just not be able to afford gas anymore soon.
Well, I think inflation definitely has a big aspect to do with it. And this kind of goes on to that information thing I was talking about earlier is so many countries have limited the exportation of goods, including fuel. Like China has exportation bans on, though they're not a large supplier to the world market of different types of oil and fuel, they have banned exportations on coal and oil right now. Saudi Arabian oil fields keep getting bombed and blown up by Yemen rebels.
Yep.
So like there's a lot of small things that are happening all around the world. It's not just Ukraine, Russia, like the U.S. media likes to push.
Yeah. I haven't. Sadly, I haven't really been keeping my ear to the ground on that one too much. Probably because I don't use my social media to cater to that, but. Mm-hmm. It's getting scary with that, especially if trucks aren't going to be able to be taking freight to states. That becomes a serious worry.
I think we have definitely accelerated the kind of collapse time frame in a sense over this past 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and what do you think? Kind of a side note here, but what would you say would be like collapse? Because I always hear different opinions from a whole lot of different people about like how that would go. Do you think that it would just be like we're out of everything, everyone's just robbing shit now?
I see collapse as a breakdown in societal courtesy. And what I mean by courtesy is just like kind of the social contract that we all kind of go through our day-to-day stuff without just causing pure nonsense. We all go to the work. We go home, we take our kids to soccer practice, we go to the grocery store, we all coexist.
Yeah.
I think the collapse is the breakdown of that social contract.
Okay, that's pretty fair.
And I think that social contract breaks down with the removal of goods and services.
Okay, I like that definition. That's really good. Because everyone, I hear like, well, that's when we don't have anything anymore and people start robbing each other, and I'm like, I think it would collapse before we start shooting at each other, like before that.
The shooting occurs after all of that. After all of that. There's so much that has to get done before the shooting starts.
Yeah, and it becomes gradual too. I mean, if you watch like when democracies collapse just in history and in different countries, that's usually what happens. It gradually starts becoming more and more violent and different targets start arising.
And, no matter what goes on with Roe versus Wade or racial tensions or political ideologies, none of that stuff will cause the collapse.
I agree.
Collapse will be bread and circuses when they come to an end.
Yep. It's going to start with the economy.
And I think, we've differed on this opinion in the past and we may not now. I don't think we're that far from the consumer collapse.
I think we're getting close to it, but I think what's going to happen is it's not going to just completely like collapse. I think it's going to just pretty much bridge right into a new world order. I think we're going to start like just getting so scared that we start begging governments to get involved and we start begging them for this and that. And they'll say, okay, but we're going to be doing a new world order now. And we all collectively just decide, okay, I think that gets scary.
I have the theory that what I call pocket collapse.
Okay.
And the theory is that whenever this kind of breakdown in the social contract does begin, it will be in small regional breakdowns throughout the U.S. So, for example, let's say the droughts do get even worse this year throughout the Southwest.
Yeah.
The social contract the drought mixed with, fuel prices and a lack of logistics breaks down the social contract in, we'll say, California, Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Now the rest of the country may not be at that point yet. So the rest of the country continues to operate, still paying high prices and whatnot. But they're kind of like, we just won't go to those 4 states. And those 4 states continue to get worse and worse and worse. And it kind of is a domino effect. Now the next region kind of starts to fall apart. And people go, we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
And it just kind of pockets itself across the U.S. That's my theory about it.
That's pretty fair. Do you think that would like lead towards a balkanization situation then?
I think it would definitely lead towards a balkanization, but I think a balkanization takes years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not just going to be a month-long thing.
I think one, we're already past an irreversible point.
Yes.
Where we are way past an irreversible point, both on the failure of the logistics system that we have in place, the collapse of the dollar, and the inevitability of some sort of civil conflict in the U.S., whether it's political or balkanization. I think we're past the point of no return for all of those.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we're past the point, and now it's a matter of, okay, what's going to catch us, and it's not going to be good no matter what it is, but something is going to happen pretty much no matter what you believe in at this point. Like we're in a free fall right now.
Oh, we are absolutely in a free fall.
Yeah.
And I think, I personally think by this coming fall, that is the beginning of said social contract collapse. Because I do believe that food scarcity will be so bad come maybe September, October, that though it may not affect every corner of the United States, it will start to affect very largely populated areas throughout the U.S.
Yeah, I was going to say it'll start in the western cities for sure. Because probably the far west and far east, those are going to be the ones that just get hit the hardest.
And I'm not sure if you saw India on Friday, their agricultural department or whoever is in charge of that kind of stuff on their federal level, banned the exportation of wheat and a list of other raw goods.
Yep.
Because their drought is so bad. Now, for those that don't know, India is one of the top 5 wheat producers in the world, and they were supposed to be picking up the slack from Ukraine, Russia, because they decided they want to fight it out right now.
Yep.
However, since India is now banning the exportation of those goods, I think, and there was an exception to a list of already basically paid for business up to a certain time date. That's very significant. So now you have Ukraine, Russia off the board. You have China, who has also placed restrictions in place on exportation to basically the West. And now you have India going, sorry, we can't help.
It's a party.
It's a party. I feel like I haven't gotten good news in like 6 years.
It's been a minute, yeah.
It's been a minute. Basically, since this, I just started keeping track of everything. There's been no good news.
Yeah, and also Elder Scrolls 6 is nowhere in sight. We're fucked, boys.
Oh my gosh, I don't even want to talk about that. Absolutely, we're not talking about that. Absolutely not. Oh, I miss that game.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to not be a doomer, man.
It's
difficult, and I mean, the best ones aren't doomers, but man, when you start looking into it, it's just like, this is a wild time right now. And at the individual level, it's like you got to at least change the mindset at the very least. Like it's going to get shaky.
I don't consider myself a doomer. I consider myself a realist with a doomer attitude, because
I was going to say realist.
Things will be better eventually. This will all be done eventually.
Yeah.
It will repeat itself again in history sometime down the line.
Yeah.
But like you and I have talked separately in the past before, is we have a long line of suffering and unfortunate line of events that have to play out before things go back the other direction.
And it's kind of discouraging at times when, like, I've heard that from almost everyone in our generation. Like, no matter what side they're on, no matter what political opinions they have, they're all saying the same thing of, it's probably going to get really bad before it gets good again.
I think this period of general world peace over the past around 75 years is somewhat to blame for that.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I shouldn't say blame. But is somewhat at fault for that, because it's just, again, it's the whole just built up tension thing.
Yep.
It's just kind of like the collapse of the dollar. We keep kind of covering it up with more printed money and changing interest rates and all of this, which inevitably will just make the collapse worse.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's much, peace in this statement, but luckily, this isn't new. You know, like in the eyes of like the human race and just our history on Earth, this has happened so many times. It just happens to be our turn right now, and
is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. You could look into, I mean, really the best ways to prepare yourself is to look into how other economies have collapsed, how other supply chains have collapsed, how democracies fall, and you can see, you know, if they're not one-to-one, there's at least similarities. And with that, luckily, we can at least take some experience out of it and try and figure out the right way to handle our own individual lives.
It seems like kind of the reset of the world in a sense, and I just mean kind of the swinging pendulum effect happens about every 100 to 150 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we had the American Revolution, which was after the 7-year war between Spain, England, and France, which shocked the absolute world. Then we had the American Revolution and the French Revolution, all in a very small time frame.
Yes.
You fast forward 100 years, then we had World War I, which was immediately followed by the Great Depression and World War II.
Yeah.
And now you fast forward 100 years from that, we are here now.
Yep.
And we're in the first stages of the conflict, Russia versus Ukraine. And the Russia-Ukraine thing is not ending anytime soon.
Oh, no. No. It's just like everything else. It's going to get far worse before it gets any better.
Yeah. We have a long way to go.
And especially with warfare being what it is now. This is forms of warfare that the human race has never seen before, with informational warfare, cyber attacks, just the drones nowadays, like just all this insane shit it's not new, but it's different for sure. And that's probably why it's a lot scarier than before. But so was World War I, and so was World War II, and they were all new. So
yeah. And I think that kind of even brings a good point back onto the gun culture thing. Is like, if you look at specifically the Ukrainian side in the Ukraine-Russia war, there are so many regional militias in Ukraine that are utilizing basically commercial drones and Baofangs.
Yep.
And are effectively conducting operations to whatever you define as
operations. Oh, they are really effectively conducting that shit. I saw a standard like just a consumer drone drop like a pack of C4 onto a tank. That's and just watching that was like, yo, that's wild. I think like the entire argument where it's like, you know, well, are you going to take on the entire government with an AR-15? No, but I'll get an RC helicopter, you know, like it's little tiny guerrilla tactics are showing up.
Yeah, don't let yourselves be discouraged because your group doesn't all have $800 Motorola's and you just have Baofangs. Like,
yeah, I run Baofang.
Yeah, there's no reason.
It's good.
There's no reason you should, in a sense, depending on what your objective is, there's no reason you should be running anything other than a Baofang. Because comms is not secure to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's always having this conversation about like, how do I encrypt my Baofang? Well, it's not real encryption on Baofangs. That's kind of the issue with them. But I mean, what do you see yourself doing that's so extreme that you need? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what you're doing, you know. But it's not very realistic.
But to an extent, it's definitely not worth paying $1,000 for some Gucci radio only to get hacked on the third day of the end of the world.
Yeah, exactly. And when you totally could have just stayed home and maybe grew some potatoes. Like I don't know.
Grow potatoes.
Get a greenhouse. I keep saying it.
Just buy a greenhouse, dude. What are you doing?
What are you doing, bro? What you mean to tell me you're going to get another AR-15, bro? And you don't have a greenhouse?
That's going to be a meme.
What about a reloading station?
Surprise! The greenhouse is a reloading station.
It's my garage.
You just pull back your green bean poles, and it's a reloading station behind it.
If someone can pull that off, I'd be amazed.
If you have pictures of your greenhouse that's been transferred into basically a Second Amendment, wet dream, please send that in for
posting. Send that in to both of us.
It will be published. Oh, man. I don't know. I try to stay positive and just know that the preps that I'm doing now will help me down the line. But it's just like, man, we got a long way to go.
Yeah, I'm in the stage of like, I moved out of California, but I'm not far away from it enough. So I'm like, all right, this is we're gonna, scrap everything here to a degree, go back to the drawing board, figure out, what the move is, and then from there we'll be able to regroup and that'll be solid. Because get out of the cities, boys and girls, they are not gonna be good for you.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? It's hard. The
Yeah,
housing
man.
market sucks.
Oh,
I'm going through
shit.
the whole housing thing right now, and this has been a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean the market completely like killed itself. It looks like.
I mean, besides my interest rate drastically changing just from the beginning of 2022 to now, which has killed my entire process in a sense,
Yeah.
it's made this so much more difficult. It's hard just as, a young adult to buy a house.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, houses, one, are abnormally expensive. Even if you buy a trailer on 15 acres in the middle of nowhere, like, they're still expensive.
Yep.
And the market doesn't help it. But, these banks and everything have these crazy conditions now. I need, like, even like right now, my lenders have been asking for like, whatever, my college transcripts and stuff like that. I'm like, what does this have anything to do with me paying for a house?
Yeah.
Like, just the amount of money you need to put down and closings. Closing costs is something they do not talk about enough. People talk about
Nope.
down payments, closing costs. That is an extra almost 10 grand, maybe more, depending on your loan type, that you did not expect that was coming. And it will hit you in the mouth like, something you've never felt. I mean, it's just like, what?
And it was already awful, like for our generation to even consider buying houses, and now it's just like it's looking almost impossible. I don't even know how you're doing it, Jeremy. Honestly, like you're amazing me.
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, what happened yesterday?
What
How'd
did I
this?
do?
I did this? Wow. All right.
Damn.
Well, let's see how I get, fucked over today.
I guess I'll call the bank again. Fuck.
Every real estate agent and a lot of lenders I've talked to through this whole process have all said pretty much the same thing, which is very unfortunate. But it's that the housing market, regardless of how the economy performs, is not going to get better. Potentially, period, end of story.
Yeah.
Because we are so far behind house construction in the U.S. to basically match the buyer demand caused from the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because millions of people are behind their housing plans now, and there's pretty much no way to catch up with it. And you match that with greedy corporations just creating a generation of renters.
Oh yeah, and let's not forget, insider trading inside of the housing market too. That's also just a whole lot of fun. Like they're playing like a video game with these markets, man.
There's two things we hate on this podcast, guys. It's government and Dakota Myers. Second Amendment. Those are two things I stand firmly behind.
And we're coming up on Tim Kennedy hatred too.
Oh man, I don't know. We're not going down that rabbit hole.
I know, nope, no, but everyone knows.
Screw them. We're gonna talk about it. Nope. Hang up. I hate pro vets.
Yeah, I do too, dude. I'm a civilian. Think about how I feel.
It's more frustrating I feel like it's more frustrating as a veteran who encourages civilians to train.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
and you're just
probably
watching just some random E5 who got a Medal of Honor one time, and now he thinks he gets to dictate what people can do with their Second Amendment right.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's like, well, why are you protecting the rights in the first place, bro?
That may be a little spicy for everybody listening, but I don't care.
Yeah. It's just support everyone's rights. I think that's kind of what it comes down to.
Rights. End of story. That's
it's
it.
about rights. It's if I want to wear a ballistic helmet and go do my laundry, I have the right to do so. Like it is what it is.
I should be able to take my trash out in the dark wearing nothing but nods.
Yeah.
And I mean nothing.
Nothing whatsoever.
Which I will be doing once I close on this house. I 100% will just walk my trash to the other side of my 9-acre property in nods because I can, because that's my property and I don't care.
A little breezy out tonight.
Sir, it's December. Yeah?
Yep.
I can see that. I got nods on, bud. There's snow on the ground.
I didn't notice. I'm just a little chilly. Stop looking.
Well, is there any topics that you would like to discuss?
I don't have very many topics, but man, I do got to give you praise, dude. I really appreciate what you're doing with your company, your business, and just everything you're doing with your media. I'm so happy that the zuckening didn't completely kill you.
I was down there for I was down for a minute.
It sucked, man. It was not looking good, but I hope you're making a pretty solid correction because it appears that you are.
Some people haven't even made it back.
Nah, dude. A lot of people just pretty much called it quits, and that's, you know what? All the power to them. I just hope I find them somewhere else.
It's kind of like you talked about in your episode of your podcast last week. I like you said it. You're like, I like editing. I like editing, but I like posting information.
Yeah, I like teaching too. I didn't really touch on that very much, but recently I've been, just taking small weapon mechanics things that I've learned and just trying to pass that along because I like knowing that I've made someone harder to kill.
Your video edits are getting really good.
Thank you, sir. I've been trying.
But I know I have benefited so much from information that people have posted to social media.
Yeah.
Through years now, not even just since COVID. I mean for years now.
Yeah.
I feel like there's no reason that there's no reason I shouldn't spread knowledge to those that seek knowledge if they seek it.
Yep. So this is funny, quick little story. I originally started in the social media side of things as just a meme page. I had like a completely different, handle and everything, and I was just posting fucked up memes. And eventually I started coming across the people who were like teaching more and like, educating just very tiny weapon manipulation stuff that I didn't know. And that kind of bred into what I am now and what the page that I have now is. And, it's nothing special. I'm not out here with like thousands and thousands of followers or anything like that. It doesn't really matter to me anyways, but it's shit like that really benefits individuals with meme pages going and actually learning and wanting to teach.
Remember when we all used to dry fire on social media?
Oh, yeah.
Man, time seems so much simpler, even that short amount of time ago.
It was like 9 months ago. It seems like years ago. It's still good, I think, to show, because if someone is going through Instagram looking at, silly stuff, OMG, Russia is bombing Ukraine again, and then they come across, a video of a guy just doing dry fire, the question inside of their own head comes up of like, well, what am I doing right now? I guess I could go dry fire. Mm-hmm. And then they go dry fire. So it's like, put it on the story. We don't got to post about it, but
yeah,
I think everything benefits at least one person in a small way somehow if you do it with good intention.
Well, Max, I think this has been an absolute pleasure.
Jeremy, this was kick-ass, man. Thank you for that.
This was good. I can't wait to re-listen to this again.
Yeah, I know. I love doing that too.
Do you listen to your own podcasts after you post it?
I do. It sounds really narcissistic, but for people who like don't have the podcast stress, it may not make a whole lot of sense. I do listen to it just to make sure that like my audio wasn't messed up all the way, because I accidentally press buttons.
I like to go back the audio thing is a big one and just kind of the quality of podcast, but I like to see like how I myself have delivered information and how the podcast flowed.
Yeah.
Then once I hear it from like a different perspective, it's like, okay, I can change this, or this was good. I should do more of this in a sense.
You've got to be critical of yourself for pretty much everything, especially with podcasts, because if you want to make it better, then you gotta see what you failed at. Mm-hmm. But you're doing a great job, dude. I really enjoy your podcast, and shout out to Austin, because that episode was kick ass.
It was a fun one to do, and
I liked it a lot.
I think that was the first time he was on a podcast as well.
Yeah, I feel bad. I got to get him on mine.
But having a podcast, like a guest list is kind of a pain.
Oh, it's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah.
You know how it is.
Yeah, dude. That first season was almost all guests, and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna survive this.
But it's worth it for the listeners if they get something out of it.
Absolutely, man.
You want to give any shout outs? Any final remarks? Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so shout out to Tanner. Me and him, for those of you who have forgotten, we run the Undesirable Individuals podcast. Check that out. Be sure and put the tinfoil hats on. That's what we do over there. Shout out to Dave at the Polar Connection. He's doing great. Shout out my girlfriend because she is supportive as fuck. And I guess that's it. That's all I got, really. I mean, the businesses, companies still training civilians. There's too many to name at this point. I don't want to feel like I'm cherry picking. So all of them, they're doing a great job staying true to their beliefs.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, man.
For me, I'm gonna shout out my girlfriend as well.
Fuck
She's
yeah.
extremely supportive. She puts up with me, which is impressive.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
She has never once complained about how busy my life is, or ever complained that like I'm training on a Saturday with the guys.
That's great.
It's awesome. So big shout out to my girlfriend. And yeah, shout out to all the other companies, but also just the non-companies, the personal pages, the personal information pages that continue to push education.
Yeah. The people who are just sticking to it.
Yeah. Big shout out to all of you guys. That's how we make it out of all of this, for sure.
Yep.
And then shout out to my local guys. Again, y'all train hard. Y'all train harder than I would say even a large majority of the guys I even served with. I mean, you guys are passionate just all the time. Love it. Big fan.
I'm gonna come out and train with y'all soon.
Dude, so I know we're trying to wrap this up, but now that I've secured this property, I actually do have somewhat of a plan to like try and get as many of you out as possible for like a homie meetup day.
Yeah.
Not everybody, not like 40 people, but like the 5 or 6 like Instagram homies. You know who I'm talking about.
Hell yeah, dude. We will be here in my little group. We will be there for sure.
Hell yeah. And then Dave's just down in Tennessee now, so now he can. That's nothing.
Any excuse for me to go see Dave is a good excuse, so I'll be there.
I also cannot wait to meet Dave.
Oh, he's the best, dude. He's awesome.
I know. All right, guys, that is it for episode 3, social media and gun culture. As always, guys, train hard, train often.
Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Straight the numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours. Tell me turn it down